Today felt heavier than usual at the hospital. As I walked through the bustling ward, the cacophony of hurried footsteps reverberated against the linoleum floor, blending with the rhythmic beeping of machines. Each sound clawed at something deep inside me, a familiar ache of inadequacy coiling tightly in my chest, like a tightening vice. As a nurse, I had always anchored my identity in the ability to provide care and comfort. Yet, as I donned my scrubs this morning, I sensed an unsettling restlessness just beneath the surface. It started in a routine check with Mr. Thompson, an elderly man whose spirit, despite his frail body, lit up the dreary ward. As we spoke, vulnerability enveloped the air when he suddenly broke down, recounting the loss of his beloved wife and the deafening loneliness that followed. His raw sorrow cut through me, igniting a deep yearning to embrace my own buried feelings. A knot formed in my throat, heavy and painful. I almost wished to cry alongside him, to relinquish the facade of strength that had become my armor. But I remained frozen, paralyzed by echoes of my childhood teachings. When he sobbed, I felt a tightening in my chest, overwhelmed yet unable to act. Internally, I chastised myself for feeling so unsteady. After all, hadn't I dedicated my life to helping others sift through their struggles? Why was it so difficult for me to manage my own turmoil? Later, in the tranquility of the nurse's station during a rare moment of solitude, I caught my reflection in the glass. I stared at my image, searching for answers. Why must I remain silent? I wondered, that question stirring a cyclone of thoughts within me. Memories of my upbringing flooded back, a tempest of emotions rising to the surface. My father had always dismissed feelings, teaching me that vulnerability was synonymous with weakness. I could hear his harsh words ringing in my ears. Why are you crying? It's nothing. Those moments had trained me to conceal my emotions beneath a mask of stoicism, a lesson that had shaped my adult life. I closed my eyes and recalled all the instances I had stifled my feelings. When I wiped away tears after a bicycle fall, during relentless arguments between my parents, even when my hard work was overlooked for a promotion. I had been conditioned to believe that showing emotion was a sign of failure, that my feelings were burdens too heavy for others to carry. But that day, something felt different. The weight of Mr. Thompson's tears stirred a well of longing within me, whispering a truth I could no longer ignore. This tension and turmoil were a call to confront the pain I had buried so deeply. Perhaps today marked the beginning of a pivotal change in my life, a moment of awakening where I could finally acknowledge my emotions instead of suppressing them. With newfound determination, I took a deep breath and reflected on the duality of my role as a caregiver and as someone in need of healing. A thought flickered in my mind, fragile yet potent. The silence that bound me became the voice that set me free. I felt raw energy coursing through me, a spark of hope that unfolded the prospect of breaking my silence and liberating myself from the invisible shackles of my past. Perhaps, just perhaps, the pathway to healing lay in embracing the very emotions I had long dismissed. As I sat quietly at the nurse's station, the comforting hum of the hospital's operations surrounded me, but my mind drifted far from the present. Instead, I found myself revisiting a past I desperately tried to forget, a past filled with stifled emotions and unvoiced pain. Memories flooded my consciousness, vivid snippets of my childhood that had laid the groundwork for my struggles today. I was about 6 years old, a time when the world felt bigger and more terrifying than I could comprehend. I recalled being outside on that sunny afternoon when I fell off my bike, my knee scraping against rough asphalt. I sat alone, tears streaming down my cheeks, the sting of pain overshadowed only by the need for comfort. I could hear my mother calling me from the house, urging me to come inside for a snack. But before I could even begin to make my way back in, my father stepped out, his sharp voice slicing through my vulnerable state like a blade. "Toughen up, Sophia. It's just a scrape." In that moment, I learned that showing pain was unacceptable. The tears I shed were met not with compassion, but with a demand for strength. "You must be strong," he'd said, his tone a monolith of stoicism that shaped my reality. Those words drilled into my psyche, a mantra that would echo throughout my youth, compelling me to build walls around my heart. I remembered another instance that cemented this belief, a night where parental arguments spiraled into chaos. I was hiding under my bed, clutching my Yao, stuffed animal, listening to my parents yell at each other. Their wrath felt like a storm, and I, a small boat tossed in turbulent seas. I wanted to scream, to let my cries pierce through the noise, to ask them to stop. Instead, I swallowed my fear and curled deeper into the shadows, carrying the weight of their unspoken truths alone. The years went by, and that silence, no matter how heavily it weighed, became a comfortable companion. I must be perfect to be loved, I told myself, ingraining it into my core beliefs. Perfection became my shield, a way to earn praise and validation in a household where affection felt scarce. Any hint of vulnerability was quickly brushed aside, dismissed as weakness, and this dictation formed my identity. Even my brother, always regarded as the golden child, replicated these family dynamics. While he basked in the praise of our parents, I became the caretaker, the one who held everything together. This role solidified my belief that my feelings were a burden, something no one wanted to hear. The internal monologue persisted. Expressing emotions weakens me. To admit I was struggling or hurting was a threat to the mask I wore. Each time I suppressed my emotions, I felt a fracture deepen within me, yet I continued to adhere to the false comfort of silence. Flashes of memories spiraled, connecting the dots of my past, the missed opportunities for connection, and the aching loneliness that blanketed my childhood. I remember standing in front of the mirror, putting on the strong persona and practicing smiles. I became adept at hiding my true self, perfecting the performance I believed was necessary to be worthy of love and acceptance. And yet, a part of me, the child within, yelled for recognition. This little girl, filled with hopes and dreams, clung to the edges of my consciousness, longing for validation that never came. In the depths of my memory, she wandered the hallways of my heart, seeking acknowledgement not only from my family but from myself. "Why can't I just show you who I am?" she whispered in the silence, a question that lingered in the air, barely audible but resounding. Now, sitting in the hospital's fluorescent glow, it dawned on me that I needed to re-examine these beliefs that had shaped my identity and emotions. The more I acknowledged this pain, the clearer the path to healing seemed to emerge. I began journaling, scrawling my thoughts, seeking to connect with that inner child who longed for affection. Through each written word, I confronted the beliefs that had been drilled into me, tackling them one by one. Expressing emotions is weakness. I wrote it down, then crossed it out with heavy strokes. No, that's not true. I challenged myself, pouring out emotions I hadn't dared to express before. Vulnerability is strength. It's part of being human. As I continued writing, I marveled at how language began to unearth truths, often buried beneath layers of silence. The girl who once craved her parents' affection began to speak through the pen, reclaiming the power that had long been stolen from her. I felt a flicker of hope light up within me. Perhaps by confronting these memories and reframing my beliefs, I could release the grip of this grief that had chained me to the past. Gradually, I understood that these painful memories did not define me. They were pieces of a puzzle that reflected resilience and growth. With each step in this new journey of discovery, I felt the silent chains start to loosen, ready to reveal the strength I had within all along. In the weeks that followed my initial explorations into my past, I found myself delving deeper into journaling and reflection. Each night at my small desk, surrounded by colorful pens and open pages, I sought clarity. During one of these sessions, the name Carl Jung surfaced, a reminder from a friend in my therapy group about his groundbreaking concepts. Curiosity set in as I pulled out my laptop and searched for his work on the inner child and shadow. The more I learned about Jung's theories, the more they resonated. In particular, the idea of the inner child struck a chord. This was the part of me that had been silenced for years, the child bursting with hopes and dreams, yet yearning for validation. Jung suggested that recognizing this child and addressing her needs was vital for healing. As I pondered this, I could visualize my inner child. There she was, sitting beneath the staircase with her stuffed bunny, waiting for reassurance and love. In that instant, I became acutely aware of my responsibility to her. I needed to embrace her, to give her the acknowledgement and care she so desperately sought. Then I encountered Jung's idea of the shadow. He elucidated how this represented the hidden aspects of ourselves, our fears, insecurities, and the traits we suppress. The thought made my heart race. I knew my shadows were there, lurking in the background, influencing my life. That evening, I closed my laptop, resolved to engage with these ideas through journaling. I envisioned a heartfelt conversation with my inner child, inviting her to express what I had long ignored. As I wrote, I crafted our dialogue. Why did you never come to me, Sophia? I was afraid. I didn't know how. But I needed you. I needed you to acknowledge my pain. Tears streamed down my face as I let the words flow. I allowed my inner child to voice her fears of inadequacy and the pressure of perfection. For the first time, I embraced her pain, admitting the hurt buried beneath layers of silence. You are enough just as you are, I wrote. You do not have to be perfect. It was liberating. The weight of shame started to lift, allowing me to see that these suppressed emotions were necessary for my growth. Jung's teachings empowered me to bring these hidden aspects into the light, accepting all facets of myself with love. Motivated, I joined a local therapy group focusing on Jungian concepts, eager to dive deeper into my exploration. As I entered the welcoming room filled with others searching for healing, nervousness filled me. Would my story resonate? Could I connect? One by one, participants shared their experiences, revealing their struggles and hidden shadows. I listened intently, a sense of camaraderie building in the warm atmosphere of acceptance. As I spoke about my journey with my inner child, I felt a surge of empathy from the group. For the first time, I realized that we all carried shadows, and here, we were free to discuss them without judgment. In this nurturing space, I began to see my past in a new light. Exploring the notions of the shadow became imperative. It was essential not to perceive these parts of myself as negative, but rather as lessons in resilience and growth. I reflected deeper, identifying emotions and behaviors I had long denied. My fear of vulnerability, once a choking restraint, transformed into an opportunity for profound understanding. Embracing Jung's principles, I felt a significant shift within me. No longer were those painful memories merely chains binding me, they were stepping stones on my path to self-discovery. I began to articulate the importance of connection, not just with others, but with myself. This realignment started to dissipate the fog that had clouded my perception of who I was. That night, with my journal open, I began to confront the void in my past. It was no longer enough to acknowledge my inner child. I wanted to live for her. I wrote, filled with hope and determination, I will not let fear of judgment dictate my actions any longer. I will share my voice, my truth. It felt as if I was emerging from the darkness, stepping into my light with integrity. With Jung's wisdom guiding me, I stood ready to unearth a powerful truth. By accepting and integrating all parts of myself, light and shadow, I could finally pave the way for healing. Learning to express my emotions became the key to not only liberating myself, but also allowing my inner child to come forth, sharing her light with the world. The journey ahead was clear. It was time for me to embrace every part of my story, acknowledging its beauty as I walked toward the future. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself fully embracing the transformative journey ahead. Armed with my journal and the wisdom I had gleaned from Jung's teachings, I was more determined than ever to confront the shadows I had long avoided. It was time to explore the hidden recesses of my psyche, where emotional burdens resided, and to engage in a profound journey of self-discovery. In a quiet space at home, I began by reflecting on my childhood and recognizing how my upbringing sculpted my beliefs and emotions. What experiences had shaped the person I was today? I dove into my past, searching for the roots of my core complexes. the unacknowledged fears and insecurities that had silently influenced my life decisions. The first complex I engaged with was linked to my role as the strong one in the family. Growing up in a household where emotional expression was stifled, I learned to equate strength with silence. I took on the responsibility of caring for others while neglecting my own needs. This role, while seemingly noble, left a void inside me, a rift that made vulnerability feel like treachery. I recalled moments of my brother receiving parental praise while I stood in the shadows, busy holding our family's fabric together. A wave of resentment mixed with guilt surged through me. I realized I had been conditioned to hide my feelings and suppress my desires. I began to write down these insights. With each reflection, I unearthed connections between my childhood experiences and the emotional turmoil I battled as an adult. If I always appear strong, who am I when I let my guard down? I pondered. As I continued this introspective work, I started to understand my second shadow, my profound fear of failure. As a nurse, the stakes felt impossibly high. Every misstep weighed on me, and I often associated making mistakes with inadequacy. I remembered a particular day when I had miscommunicated a dosage, a small error in the grand scheme, but one that plunged me into self-recrimination. I summarily withdrew, burying my shame instead of seeking support. Why must I hold myself to such unyielding standards? I questioned while journaling one night. I slowly uncovered the answer. My upbringing, where perfection was the expectation, and anything less felt like a failure. Each realization poured forth, turning past pains into stepping stones for my growth and understanding. In an act of self-compassion, I decided to write a letter to my younger self. Sitting outside under the gentle embrace of the sunlight, I let my thoughts flow on pages. "Dear Sophia," I began, "I see you. I see your struggles, your fears. It's okay to feel scared. It doesn't make you weak." Each word resonated deeply, forming a bridge between my past and present self, where forgiveness and understanding blossomed. This journey was not just solitary, it extended into my interactions with the therapy group. Sharing my evolving insights became vital for my healing. As I spoke about the importance of embracing my shadows and cultivating vulnerability, empathy flowed throughout the room. I realized that my experience wasn't unique. Everyone carried unspoken burdens that craved acknowledgement. The therapy group became a sanctuary for collective healing. With each person sharing their stories, I recognized the universality of our struggles. It was liberating to witness how we transformed the narratives of pain into opportunities for resilience. I celebrated small victories, such as recognizing the importance of boundaries and learning to articulate my needs without guilt. Slowly, I transformed my relationship with my shadows. They no longer represented the dark corners of my psyche, but rather guiding forces nudging me toward deeper understanding. I began viewing failures as essential parts of the learning journey. "I am here to learn, and it's okay to fall," I declared in my journal. On particularly tough days, when vulnerability felt overwhelming, I relied on my practice of visualization. I would imagine myself standing in a lush field, sunlight basking down, surrounded by my shadows illuminating their lessons. Each shadow shared a truth, a lesson, teaching me to embrace every aspect of myself, both light and dark. As I continued to confront these shadows, I felt a profound shift in how I viewed my past. The once oppressive memories transformed into opportunities for growth. Each shadow became an integral piece of my identity. I was no longer running from my fears, but embracing them, learning how to transcend the boundaries of my comfort zone. With Jung's teachings as my guide, I remained dedicated to this journey of self-discovery. I nurtured my inner child, offering her the encouragement I had once withheld. "You are worthy just as you are," I affirmed, reclaiming the love and compassion she had desperately needed. Ultimately, the quest to confront my shadows revealed the beautiful complexity of my being. Each discovery allowed me to stand taller, increasingly confident in my authenticity. I understood that every facet of me held value, the strengths, the vulnerabilities, and yes, even the imperfections. The journey ahead felt clearer. I was stepping into my truth, armed with the knowledge and acceptance I had sought for years. With each passing day, I prepared to embrace every detail of my story, ready to experience healing and connect more deeply with myself and the world around me. In doing so, I opened the door to transformation, allowing my shadows to serve as catalysts for growth rather than obstacles to avoid. The road to healing would be ongoing, but I felt equipped to walk it with grace and courage. Embracing my complexities made me whole. No longer fragmented by fear, I stepped confidently into my own light. After months of introspection, healing, and confronting my shadows, I reached a pivotal moment in my journey. It felt like standing on the brink of transformation, ready to embrace a life aligned with my true self. The integration of my inner child, fears, and the lessons learned from my shadows had brought me to a crossroads, a place where I could either continue to evolve or retreat back into the comfort of silence. One crisp autumn morning, the vibrant colors of changing leaves outside my window beckoned me to reflect. The world around me appeared to embody the beauty of change, reminding me of the growth I had fought for. As I walked through the nearby park, the crunch of leaves underfoot matched the rhythm of my racing heart. With each step, I came face to face with my lingering fear. What if embracing my true self meant sacrificing the relationships I held dear? In the past, I had chosen silence to maintain peace. But living authentically meant breaking free from that habitual chain. During a therapy session later that week, I shared my apprehension about confronting my family and expressing my newfound understanding. My therapist listened attentively, then gently guided me to recognize the potential of this confrontation, not just for myself, but for my entire family's growth. Your courage to be vulnerable could inspire them to do the same, she said, illuminating the transformative power of honesty. Her words resonated deeply within me. After days of contemplation, I decided it was time. I envisioned the conversation with my parents and brother, imagining how I would articulate my experiences and explain how our family dynamics had influenced me. It was crucial for them to understand that silence had become the accepted norm, stifling our emotional expression and connection. On the day of the meeting, anxiety fluttered in my stomach as I approached my parents' house. The familiar surroundings overwhelmed me, evoking countless memories of silence and unexpressed feelings. I took a deep breath, centering myself, and knocked on the door. My mother greeted me with her usual warmth, unaware of the emotional storm brewing inside me. We gathered in the living room, surrounded by the trappings of our shared history, photos that told stories of our family's journey, often devoid of the unsaid truths. After small talk, I knew it was time to share my truth. Mom, Dad, there's something important I need to discuss, I began, my voice wavering slightly. I've been on a journey of self-discovery, and I want to talk about how our family dynamics have shaped who I am today. Their expressions shifted, curiosity mingling with apprehension. I pressed on, bravely venturing into uncomfortable territories. I explained the importance of emotional expression and how I had felt silenced for so long. I shared my feelings of inadequacy and the burdens of perfectionism that had quieted my voice. As I spoke, I saw tears welling up in my mother's eyes, an emotion I had rarely witnessed. It seemed to evoke a profound realization in her. I continued sharing the experiences of feeling like I had to carry the weight of our family's emotional climate. I want to create a space where we can share our feelings openly, I said. Our silence has created distance, and I want to bridge that gap. Suddenly, the atmosphere changed. My father responded thoughtfully, his stoic demeanor softer. I had no idea you felt this way, he finally admitted. We've been taught to be strong, to show no weakness. This revelation opened a new dimension in our conversation. My mother chimed in, expressing her own regrets. I wish we had created an environment where feelings could flow freely. We were all suffering in silence. As my parents began to unpack their own experiences, the foundation for mutual understanding solidified. I encouraged them to share their thoughts, fostering a dialogue that had been absent for far too long. The conversation did not conclude that night. It marked the beginning of an ongoing connection built on truth and honesty. We all recognize the value of vulnerability and its potential to foster change within our family dynamic. The sharing of our histories unveiled common threads of emotional struggle, forging deeper connections amongst us. This newfound openness compelled me to approach authenticity in every aspect of my life. I began sharing my journey with friends, opening up about my struggles. The response was overwhelmingly positive, reinforcing that my voice mattered and that vulnerability could strengthen bonds. At work, I became a proponent of open communication among colleagues. I initiated emotional check-ins during team meetings, creating space for everyone to share their feelings about both work and life. This initiative transformed our workplace, allowing collaboration and empathy to flourish. In every interaction, I reminded myself of the vital role I played in fostering an environment where vulnerability was welcomed. Each expression of authenticity reinforced my commitment to myself and those around me. With every conversation, I affirmed my own worth and value, connecting more deeply with others as I learned to celebrate my intricacies. Amidst these changes, I continued to nurture my inner child. I revisited activities that brought me joy, painting sunsets, dancing in my living room, and reaching out to childhood friends. Each activity was a declaration that I was deserving of happiness and that it was acceptable to embrace my authentic self. Reflecting on this journey, I recognized the road to healing extended far ahead of me, yet I felt equipped to walk it with grace. The growing light within me illuminated my path, healing the fractures around vulnerability and ushering in a new chapter defined by openness and love. In the quiet of my room that evening, I stood in front of the mirror. An empowered reflection stared back at me. I felt lighter, radiating strength, resilience, and authenticity. My journey was no longer about simply confronting my fears. It was about embracing the beauty of my complex self. With every decision I made rooted in authenticity, I opened the door to transformation, creating a future filled with possibility, connectedness, and unyielding growth. As the seasons changed outside, I recognized that I was not just changing with them, I was blossoming into a version of myself I had long sought. The path ahead was blossoming with light, and I yearned to walk it fully, embracing every nuance of my journey. As the weeks rolled on, the commitment to living authentically became my guiding principle. I embraced the transformative actions that marked my path, reveling in the newfound freedom of self-expression. Each choice I made opened opportunities to connect more deeply with myself and those around me. At work, I stepped into the role of a champion for open communication. Drawing from my own experiences, I initiated emotional check-ins during team meetings, creating environments where everyone could share their feelings, both about work and life. The initiative reshaped our workplace dynamics, allowing collaboration and empathy to flourish. I witnessed colleagues slowly shed their reservations, sharing their thoughts and emotions in a way that had previously felt unimaginable. As I fostered this environment, I constantly reminded myself of the importance of vulnerability, not just for my colleagues, but for myself as well. Each time I spoke up or facilitated a conversation, I affirmed my worth and value. With each interaction, I deepened my connections, learning to celebrate the intricate tapestry of our shared human experience. Nurturing my inner child became equally important. I returned to joyful activities such as painting, dancing in my living room, and reaching out to childhood friends. Each brushstroke on canvas and every spontaneous dance session was like a celebration of joy, a reminder that I was deserving of happiness and free to embrace my authentic self. In the calm of my room one evening, I stood before the mirror and admired the reflection staring back. That empowered version of myself radiated strength and resilience. My journey had evolved from simply confronting fears to celebrating the beauty of my identity. Each decision I made, rooted in authenticity, opened the door to deeper transformation, paving the way for a future filled with possibilities. However, the path of personal growth was not without its challenges. Lingering doubts and anxious thoughts would sometimes try to surface, remnants of my old self. During these moments of struggle, I turned to visualization practices that had served me well. I envisioned standing in a peaceful field, surrounded by gentle shadows, each one representing the fears and past behaviors I had previously avoided. Embracing those shadows became a ritual of solace and understanding. One day, with winter approaching, I decided to leverage my experiences to help others. Inspired by the changes I had cultivated, I organized a workshop on emotional intelligence at my workplace. I carefully curated resources, articles on emotional awareness, interactive activities, and discussions that prompted self-reflection. Excitement tinged with nerves surged through me. What if my colleagues didn't connect with the content? What if they resisted the idea of vulnerability? With each doubt, I recalled the growth I had experienced and the need to step outside of my comfort zone. On the day of the workshop, I stood before my gathered colleagues, heart racing. As I shared my own journey, revealing how acknowledging my feelings had transformed my life, I saw them lean into the conversation. As I guided them through reflective exercises, they began to open up about their own struggles. In that space, walls were lowered and honest discussion unfolded. I felt elated seeing colleagues, many of whom had previously been hesitant to express vulnerability, engaging deeply. One poignant moment arose when a colleague named Mia shared how societal expectations weighed heavily on her, making her feel inadequate. Her words struck a chord, yielding nods of recognition from others. As we discussed the importance of emotional boundaries, how to protect our well-being while opening ourselves to others, I witnessed a shift. It was clear that we were no longer merely co-workers. We were a community willing to embrace connection through vulnerability. The workshop was a turning point, not only for my colleagues but for me. I experienced firsthand the power of vulnerability to create deeper relationships and friendlier work environments. The fear that had gripped my earlier days began to fade as I realized that the benefits of authentic communication were both personal and collective. With a foundation of support established at work, I turned my focus back to cultivating joy in my personal life. I engaged in activities that brought fulfillment, attending art classes, dancing with friends, or simply immersing myself in my garden, nurturing the plants as a reflection of nurturing my own growth. Each moment was a reminder to stay connected to the joy within me while sharing that joy with others. I also prioritized reaching out to childhood friends to rekindle connections left dormant. Organizing casual get-togethers allowed us to revisit shared memories and support one another in the present, forging bonds that were meaningful and resilient. It became evident that authenticity in friendship deepened these connections dramatically. Vulnerability was a bridge that strengthened ties with those I had lost touch with over the years. Amidst the transformation in my personal and professional life, I was reminded of the inevitability of challenges. Some days were harder than others, and old insecurities would resurface unexpectedly. During such times, I leaned on my support system and reinforced the positive self-talk I had nurtured. I allowed myself to feel overwhelmed without shame, knowing that it was part of the healing process. As spring gently unfurled, I looked forward to the vibrant blooms and the renewed energy they signified. I stood before the mirror once more and realized the reflection, staring back, had evolved. No longer bogged down by the past, I had blossomed into a stronger and more authentic version of myself. I understood that the journey was ongoing, enriched by every interaction and revelation along the way. Through nurturing these practices of emotional awareness, expressing my true self, and fostering connection, I discovered that the practice of freedom had become foundational to my life. It was a dance, a living, breathing testament to resilience, authenticity, and shared experience. With every step forward, I opened the door wider to deeper connections, ready to embrace whatever awaited me on the horizon. The road ahead was illuminated by the joy of liberation and the boundless potential to inspire others through the power of vulnerability. As spring blossomed around me, I found my life mirroring the vibrant changes in nature. Each flower that opened its petals symbolized my own growth, a transformation rooted in authenticity and resilience. I was no longer a passive participant in my life. I was an active creator, shaping my journey with intention and passion. Reconnecting with childhood friends became essential in this newfound phase of my life. Organizing casual get-togethers allowed us to reminisce about our shared past while strengthening our bonds. Each encounter felt like a celebration of vulnerability and authenticity, as we exchanged stories of our struggles and victories. The realization that these connections were deepened by open dialogue, was a beautiful reminder of the power of shared experiences. At work, I fully embraced my role as a champion of emotional awareness. The emotional check-ins I initiated transformed our team culture. During these meetings, I witnessed colleagues begin to shed the layers of silence they had once worn so heavily. Facilitating workshops on emotional intelligence became a way for me to give back, helping others articulate their feelings and navigate their own vulnerabilities. Seeing a colleague share their challenges sparked a sense of solidarity in the room, and I felt immense pride in fostering an environment of empathy and understanding. In these workshops, I encouraged open discussion about the importance of emotional boundaries. When one colleague bravely shared her feelings of inadequacy, the room resonated with understanding. It was a moment that showcased our shared humanity, reminding all of us that vulnerability was not a weakness but a bridge to deeper connections. Witnessing this shift reaffirmed my belief that healing was best experienced in community, where support could cultivate strength. As I engaged in these transformative actions, I also prioritized playful activities that brought me joy. Painting, dancing, and immersing myself in creative endeavors became outlets for my emotions. Each stroke of the brush on canvas was a celebration of self-expression, allowing my inner child to flourish. I would often lose track of time, reveling in the process of creation and embodying the joyous spirit I had once been afraid to embrace. I also made an effort to cultivate new friendships and deepen existing ones. I reached out to old acquaintances, inviting them to join me for coffee or art events. These connections not only enriched my life, but grounded me in the importance of community. Rebuilding those friendships reminded me that authenticity could foster lasting bonds. Amidst these positive transformations, I remained conscious of the challenges that surfaced. Old insecurities would occasionally reappear, attempting to derail my progress. During these difficult moments, I leaned on the support system I had built and utilized the positive self-talk I had nurtured. I learned to allow myself to feel overwhelmed without shame, acknowledging that vulnerability was part of the healing journey. As I continued to nurture my emotional well-being, I noticed significant changes in how I approached challenges. I stood before the mirror one morning, reflecting on the person who looked back at me. Gone were the shadows of self-doubt. I had blossomed into a stronger and more authentic version of myself. Each lesson learned only enriched my ongoing journey, and I embraced the knowledge that personal growth was a continuous process. This spring felt like a rebirth, illuminating my path ahead. I found joy in fostering deeper connections, sharing my experiences, and inviting others to join my journey toward emotional freedom. Embracing my complexities had become foundational to my new identity, allowing me to inspire those around me to confront their own narratives with courage. As I walked forward into the unfolding chapters of my life, I felt the excitement of possibility. I was ready to embrace every nuance of my journey, knowing deeply that the legacy I was building extended beyond myself. It was one rooted in the power of vulnerability, connection, and the shared experiences that could illuminate the paths for others. Each step forward was one of optimism and openness, a commitment not just to my story, but to the collective healing we could all experience together.